Welcome to the Eliot Church. We're feeding back.
We are feeding back indeed.
Tradition. It's more confusing than that, if any of my colleagues are watching. But so normally I would wear preaching tabs, which is little white things you see in old paintings on ministers that come down like this. Would be a Calvinist. I was informed a few years ago that that may be too scary for people, so I chose a liberal minister outfit from a happier time. Which is the mid-20th century, 1940s through like the 1980s, where people were much kinder, much more gentle, super intellectual, but ministers who have big egos, you may not know that, they really, really, really wanted everyone to know they went to grad school, so they wore their hoods. So that's what's going on. As I was saying to a couple of people, this will kill on my Instagram feed. And now you guys at least know why I dress like this today. It's very warm. We'll see if it makes it to the sermon. It is very warm, this outfit. Anyway, Rosemary. And anyone else who has announcements can line up as well.
Welcome and good morning and happy Halloween. I just had a couple of things just to reinforce the announcements that are in your order of service about both the concert this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Which will be great, and it's a beautiful day for it, and the jack-o'-lantern contest today. So drop your pumpkins off by 5, and then, I think that, yeah, by 5, and it will be a wonderful day. And the only other thing I would mention, which I was reminded of today, that technically coffee hour, we decided years ago, before my time, or before my time as moderator, that we would try to actually consciously have coffee hour in the sanctuary. So rather than even trying to heft people up the stairs that's not so friendly, we're going to keep the coffee out in the lobby. The food is out there too, but we would encourage, you can go out if you want, obviously, but we're just trying to encourage people, since half of you stay in the sanctuary anyway and chit chat, that that's the coffee hour. So that's how we will do that going forward. And that's it. Thanks.
There's no COVID restriction to taking your coffee and coming back in here if it's cold. It was just more about accessibility.
Hi, in years past we've done collections for Thanksgiving for the Natick Service Council, and they're not doing physical food collections anymore. They're just asking for donations, and we'll make sure that there's a link to that in the announcements next week. But what we do want to do as a church, so that we can kind of support this, in a way that people like, which is actually bringing food. Over the next 3 Sundays, we're going to be doing a food drive, somewhat oriented toward things that people would need for their Thanksgiving dinner. We'll deliver it all on the Monday before Thanksgiving. So if you want to bring anything like rolls or potatoes or anything fresh, squash, that Sunday would be the one to do that. But for the next 3 Sundays, if you could think about it as you're in the grocery store, just pick up, a can of pumpkin, a box of stuffing, anything like that. That would be great. Thank you.
Actually, I forgot one thing, because I'm not the only person in costume. You guys want to say what you're dressed as today? Your dress is Brad. Very clever. You're a dinosaur. Excellent. Excellent. You look good. And dinosaur elf. Elf. And you're not sure, you put Dilly Boppers on. That's fair. That's fair. All right. Anyone else? Okay. All right, we're good. Sorry about that. So when we were planning sabbatical, we decided that the first block would end right around now because the holiday season is starting. Actually, starts today for us. As you know, we have 2 events later in the day. Halloween's tomorrow. The joke in the ministry used to be that people would start showing up right around Halloween so that they wouldn't get teased on Christmas Eve for not having gone to church. It's less true today, but it's still topical. So today we're talking about it in that sort of global sense, right? I mean, we talk about getting Advent, right? We're like, that's Advent, we're now in the official, church season, but Halloween and Thanksgiving are really a part of that. More than a ramp up. There's specific things, fear and gratitude specifically, that we kind of start getting out of the way or delving into before we hit, Christmas season. So today I thought we would think about the holidays and holidays in general and what they mean to us. So let's take a moment. Well, first I have some words from the Reverend Max Coots, which talk about holidays, and then we'll take a moment to reflect. When love is felt or fear is known, when holidays and holy days and such times come, when anniversaries arrive by calendars or consciousness, when seasons come as seasons do, old and known but somehow new, mark the time. Let nothing living slip between the fingers of the mind. Please turn to, in your gray hymnal, hymn number 39, Bring, O Morn, Thy Near. Please rise. stand, standing for the recitation of our covenants. In the love of truth and in the spirit of Jesus, we unite for the worship of God and the service of all.
Our first reading is from Luke 19, verses 1 through 10. Entering Jericho, Jesus passed through the city. There was a wealthy person there named Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus? I'll have to ask Adam afterwards. Zacchaeus. Thank you. Zacchaeus, the chief tax collector. Zacchaeus was trying to see who Jesus was, but he couldn't do so because of the crowd since he was so short. In order to see Jesus, Zacchaeus ran on ahead, then climbed a sycamore tree that was along the route. When Jesus came to the spot, he looked up and said, "Zacchaeus, hurry up and come on down. I'm going to stay at your house today." Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and welcomed Jesus with delight. When everyone saw this, they began to grumble. "Jesus has gone to a sinner's house as a guest." Zacchaeus stood his ground and said to Jesus, "Here and now I give half my belongings to poor people. If I've defrauded anyone in the least, I'll pay them back fourfold." Jesus said to the tax collector, "Today salvation has come to this house, and this is what it means to be a descendant of Sarah and Abraham. The promised one has come to search out and save what was lost." Oh, sorry.
Thanks again to the Tech Committee for your delicate work. And thanks to the Woolmans for our munchies and the flowers today. Our next reading is not the reading from Rodin that's in the order of service. The sermon went in a different direction. It was too good a reading to waste. So we'll get that again later, possibly quite soon. What we are going to read, though, is a brief piece by Thich Nhat Hanh, who I think most of you are familiar with, Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, called Original Fear, Original Desire. When we were born, our fear was born at the same time with us. During the 9 months in the womb of our mother, we felt safe. We didn't have to do anything. It was so comfortable. But when we were born, the situation changed drastically. They cut the umbilical cord and we had to learn how to breathe for ourselves. There might have been liquid in our lungs, and we had to push that liquid out so we could take our first in-breath. Whether we would survive or not depended on those first breaths. This is where the original fear comes from. We want to survive. As a tender baby, we have arms and feet, but we can't use them. We need someone to take care of us. With original fear comes original desire. There is the fear of being left alone, and there is the desire to survive. Even when we've grown up to be an adult, the original fear and original desire are still there. Fear and desire have the same root. We're afraid that we will die. That is why we desire. We desire that someone will be there who can help us to survive. We're hoping every moment for that person to come, to help us, to protect us. We feel that we're still helpless, that we don't have the means to survive by ourselves. We need another person. If we look deeply into our desire, we see that every kind of desire we have is a continuation of the original desire, because we haven't acknowledged the desire of the child inside. Our desire is impossible to satisfy. We want a new relationship, or a new job, or more money. But once we obtain these things, we don't enjoy them. Desire after desire, we never stop. And now let's take a moment in silent prayer to pray for those in need of our prayers today. Now let us hear this prayer by Nan Merrill. Oh friends, listen to the promptings of your heart, for truth makes itself known in sacred, silent spaces. Your soul is nurtured in quietude and with prayer, ever awaiting seed sown by the Spirit in fertile heart soil. When the distractions of the noisy world separate us from the source, our souls wither. We forget our purpose to express our unique gifts of love, to blossom in beauty. Oh, let us pause in our busy lives, and let us take gentle moments of being in the silence, to listen for the beloved's voice, to know love's companion presence. Now, as Jesus taught us, let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Now it is time for the offering, a free gift to a free church. bring many gifts, and together build one church community. Please be seated. All right, now please turn to your responsive reading, number 6 to 8 in the gray hymnal. Notice we're going outside of what we traditionally think of as the holiday season to the other holiday season. This is an Easter week. Or it's really fun. In the tomb of the soul, we carry secret yearnings, pains, frustrations, loneliness, fears, regrets, and worries.
In the tomb of the soul, we take refuge from the world and its heaviness.
In the tomb of the soul, we wrap ourselves in the security of darkness.
Sometimes this is a comfort, sometimes it is a mistake.
Sometimes it prepares us for experience. Sometimes it insulates us from life.
Sometimes this tomb life gives us time to feel the pain of the world and reach out to heal others. Sometimes it numbs us and locks us up with our own concerns.
In this season where light and dark balance the day, we seek balance for ourselves.
Grateful for the darkness that has nourished us, we push away the stone and invite the light to awaken us to the possibilities within us and among us, possibilities for new life in ourselves and in our world.
Excuse me, it's just a cold, I promise. Please turn to our second hymn, From All the Fret and Fever of the Day, number 9. So let's take a moment again to hear the call from Nan Merrill that we heard in our prayer today. Friends, listen to the promptings of your heart, for truth makes itself known in sacred, silent spaces. Listen to the promptings of your heart, for truth makes itself known in sacred, silent spaces. So many years ago, my first ever volunteer gig at a church was being a Sunday school teacher to a group of 22 third and fourth grade boys. We trashed our classroom. And I did this at the First Universalist Church of Auburn, Maine, where, unbeknownst to me, the future Reverend Tara Humphreys was somewhere in the nursery. We hadn't met yet. And the curriculum I used with those boys was called Holidays and Holy Days. Holidays and Holy Day. Very popular. At the same time, this outfit was popular, actually. And it managed to provide us with a different holiday for every week of the year. I think we have a copy downstairs, actually. Now, some of these holidays were well known, and you can think of them, and some of them you kind of get if we got to it, from other faith traditions. But some were super obscure, like Henry Berg Day. But part of the goal was to teach some liberal religious history, and Henry Berg was a Unitarian Universalist. And the other goal was to remind us, both the teacher and the students, what a blessing it is. What a blessing it is to sometimes have the chance to slow down, to still the storm around us, to actually listen to the promptings of our hearts in the sacred, silent spaces. Another one of those holidays was the Sabbath day that we observe every week as one of those opportunities. The only holy day many Puritans found necessary. And of course, right now, we are entering into a season of the year when there are many holidays, many holy days. In fact, we call it the holiday season, starting right now, if we choose to observe it. Now, our reading from Luke, given the theme today, might have been a little confusing because it's not a holiday story, but it is a very human story about Zacchaeus, the tax collector of Jericho. Now, he's a comic figure in our reading. He's full of energy. He's got spunk. And he's curious about Jesus. So because he cannot see over all the people in front of him, he runs ahead in the way that Jesus is going. He runs ahead of the crowd, and he climbs a tree to get a better view. But what might be lost to us in reading this story today is that this tax collector is an extremely powerful and wealthy man in the city of Jericho. Today we have IRS agents who work for the government and are regulated under the law. But it wasn't like that in the ancient world. This man, Zacchaeus, takes what he wants in taxes, forwards what is required of him, on up the chain, and then he keeps the rest. He is not the sort of person one trifles with, and certainly not the sort of person who would behave in as undistinguished a way as described here. Seeing this little man in all his finery sitting up in a tree, probably with his bodyguards all out of sorts, breathing hard, arrayed in a circle around the trunk and trying to maintain some semblance of dignity, seeing this man in the tree, Jesus, a homeless laborer and itinerant preacher, as far on the other side of every issue and the power dynamic as it is possible to be, Jesus takes a risk, looks up in the tree, and says, Zacchaeus, hurry up and come on down. I'm going to stay at your house today. Now, Zacchaeus could have had Jesus killed. But instead, he's excited by the possibility. And he makes the choice to change himself, his trajectory, his heart. He makes the choice to change himself. Here and now I give half my belongings to the poor people, he says. If I have defrauded anyone in the least, and the if is a bit of a quibble. For the original audience, they'd be like, oh yeah, you did. If I've defrauded anyone in the least, I'll pay them back fourfold. Whatever happened in that moment, whatever happened on that visit, and I am not going to get into whether it was a miracle or just the experience of being seen and assured that he was still at least a little bit good, like that moment that transformed the Grinch who stole Christmas. Whatever happened in that moment, the tax collector encountered something or someone that was greater than his dream. greater than his busyness and ambition, greater than all the mess of the world, and he unburdened himself. He laid down the role he had carried for his whole life to become someone else, to make amends, to grow as a person, and to serve, to put the needs of those poor people, the needs of the least of these, in the center of his vision. Zacchaeus was in distress, obviously. There's no other explanation for his original behavior, even before the story begins. He has gone down the wrong path, and he knows it. And something about Jesus' invitation motivates him, not just to heal his own discontent and then kind of go about his day, but to accept that given what he's learned about himself, he needs to respond to reform, to become a new and different person. He knows in that moment, perched ridiculously in that tree, that he can't be the same old tax collector he's always been, the powerful and wealthy representative of empire, the representative of empire anymore. Now, tax collectors, I think you all know this, were pretty unpopular in the ancient world. They were famous for their corruption. They were politicians of a sort. And with an election coming up, we're all aware of the sort of politician, someone generally interested in personal wealth and advancement. To Jewish people, they were even more despised because they were the arm of Caesar, a self-proclaimed god. But here in this story, Jesus, the poor man of Nazareth, becomes this man's house guest, unpacking his own bags in the home of a largely amoral, hard-bitten, secular, success-oriented dude who has some unpacking to do himself. The message of the Bible here is pretty clear. Sometimes it isn't. It's pretty clear in this story. If Zacchaeus, the corrupt official of Jericho, can do it, if he can see into himself, lay down his burdens, the trappings, the baggage, the wealth of his secular life, to create a different life, a different path, to imagine and live into a different world, and we can do it too. We can do it too. Now, this is where the holiday season comes back in. This is where the Sabbath day comes back in. There are stretches in our lives where we are not able to concentrate on our inner selves or our outer role in the world as much as we would like. That's certainly the case for me. There are phases in our existence where we really would rather not think about these bigger issues. Thich Nhat Hanh in our reading explains a little bit why. He talks about fear driving us to survive, and we can get lost in that act of survival when the siren song of success pushes and pulls us like it did Zacchaeus. Many times, we are hamsters in the habit trail. That's a callback to a sermon from 15 years ago. So if you don't remember it, it's okay. We are hamsters in the habit trail, too busy grabbing food and running on the wheel to nowhere, that we do not realize we aren't getting anywhere. And to get out of the cage, we need to pause. We need to be made to pause. We need to practice pausing. And we need to mark the time. This is what the Sabbath, something we can all observe, is for. It is our responsibility, in fact, to do so. And it is also what holidays, what holy days are for. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to each other and to the earth itself to take the time that we have been given, or to fight for that time, sometimes against ourselves, to fight for that time if we cannot find that time. We opened our service today with those words from Max Coutts. When love is felt or fear is known, when holidays and holy days and such times come, when anniversaries arrive by calendars of consciousness, when seasons come as seasons do, old and known but somehow new, mark the time, let nothing living slip between the fingers of the mind. That is the task that is required of us. To observe, to witness, to participate in our connection to each other and to creation itself. Now these celebrations, these observations, these holidays and holy days broaden our horizons, sometimes in unexpected ways. And we know that our experience of them is different from their socially or theologically assigned meanings. But that's not super important, because we also know what we need from these holy days. We know that we need to unpack all the burdens that we carry with us in order to look deeply into our own souls. During the fall, where we are now, when everything starts to pick up in our busy lives, when summer vacation becomes a distant memory, when, in the words of Nan Merrill, the distractions of the noisy world separate us from the source, during this time when pressures both real and imagined, global and personal, push in on us from all sides, the spiritual world pushes back. The spiritual world pushes back, reminding us not to forget our unique gifts of love, reminding us that all the requirements of life, all the emails and appointments, all the tasks, large and small, that fill up our days, do not make us who we really are. They do not make us who we really are. The holiday season that is upon us requires us to pause and realize that, to consider the bigger picture, to perhaps even face our trials with a little more calmness and courage. Now, every year, we start this expanded holiday season the same way. We start by facing our fears, by facing our fears. During what my niece referred to yesterday as Hallowed Weekend, which is apparently a thing. She's 16. She didn't misspeak. Often we do this with a healthy dose of humor. We are all afraid, of course, and we survive mostly by getting up and doing what has to be done, even though we are worried about an almost infinite number of things all the time. The rituals of Halloween urge us to stop running for a minute, to change our plans and consider what those fears really are, to find some way to dig deep, to overcome them, to take one of the many steps Zacchaeus took, the first step, really, toward becoming more authentically ourselves, to move forward into our own process of reformation. So we do try to mark the time. We do our best. And here at church we do. Today we have a concert at 3, which I don't believe is scary. And then we have, please see it, and then we have the jack-o'-lanterns around 5:30. And I hope you make it. And those of you online, I hope you make it to one or both of these. But then we go on, don't we? Because also at this church, we continue through this season. we will have Thanksgiving Sunday to practice gratitude. And then the next Sunday, we observe Advent with its decorations, its sanctuary life, and later the pageant and the solstice walk on the 21st, and of course Christmas Eve on the 24th. Then we will gather again in the new year for Epiphany, the end of that holiday season. We should try to be mindful through all of that. We should be mindful of how we can observe these special days. The whole mess of holidays, drawn from many traditions, is waiting for us to enjoy and to take advantage of, so that we can be like Zacchaeus and meet our new path when it rises to meet us. So let's take a moment in silence to commit to living into these days, to laying down our burdens and responding to their invitation with our own growth and courage. Blessed be. Now please turn to our final hymn, hymn number 126, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Please rise. Give nor take away, be among us and abide in our hearts. Amen, and blessed be.